everyone. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Good? Good. So we're here to talk about AI. What a surprise, right? But with, I think, a unique twist. So we are really doing a dive into AI and what it means to future-proof your organization. So really kind of the intersection of AI, the skills discussion, and really workforce transformation. So really looking forward to this. I'm joined by 4 incredible speakers. So we have Karen Kocher, who is the General Manager of Future Work and Workforce of the Future at Microsoft. David Blake, who's the CEO and founder of Degreed. We have Kian Katanforoosh, who is the CEO and founder of Workera. And we have Julia Stiglitz, who is the CEO and co-founder of CoRise. So welcome, all of you. Just to set the stage a little bit in terms of why this is such an important topic, is if you look at 2 survey data points. One is from Deloitte, where 47% of CEOs or C-level leaders feel that they are currently doing a pretty good job of training their staff around AI. So kind of like a C average or so, we'll say, half and half. And meanwhile, there was a survey that JFF, my organization, did with Morning Consult a few months ago where we surveyed workers and learners, and there were 88% of those workers who said that they don't trust their employer to be training them and teaching them about AI, right? So kind of a big kind of knowledge and trust gap, which I think really brings us to a really exciting time of opportunity for how companies can start to lean into this, how AI can really be an accelerant for skills-based hiring and skills-based advancements. We're going to dig into some of these questions and some of the challenges that this poses as well. So Karen, I want to start with you because you're leading a lot of work around how to think differently about skills and what that means for the workplace at Microsoft. So how is the landscape changing around skills, and how is that being driven by AI, and how is that changing how Microsoft is thinking about workforce development?
Thank you. Happy to be here today. That's a great big question, and I'll try to do it justice in just 2 or 3 minutes here or less. So I think what really resonates most with me when I think about this now evolution into the AI moment, right, is over the past probably 5 or 6 years, it is similar to other moments that we've had. And what I mean by that from a skills perspective, and what I mean by that is in about 2019 or so, Microsoft did a research study. And the research study basically said that if you were in a job, right, your job, you had basically like a major and then you had minors, right? And those minors became these hybridized skills. And so think about the data phenomena, right? When all of our organizations were looking for people with really great data analysis skills, right? And then think about the digital technologies era, right? Where people that could do digital marketing, as an example, could command significantly more compensation and market value than those who were just doing traditional marketing. And so what we see when you look at AI is a very similar phenomena, right? Where you need to have your major, right? If you're a marketing professional, you need to have marketing savvy. If you're an engineer, you need to have engineering savvy, right? But you also need to be able to make use of AI in order to make your work more efficient, make it more effective, just like you need to have good data analysis skills, right? So that you can really hone in on the right problem, right? You can be predictive and take advantage of the right opportunity, not just go after every opportunity. And so I think it's very much the same, right? Where your co-pilot, if you're talking about it from the Microsoft perspective, you will be able to thin out your workload and focus on things that are more important, things that really require your unique skills because you have somebody, a partner with you in the form of AI that can help you get your work done. And there was a woman here that gave a presentation over the past day or so. I thought she said it really well when she basically said, AI isn't going to take your job. The person who's figured out how to use AI is going to take your job. And so I think that that's like everything, right? If you're more efficient and effective because you're able to leverage it like good data skills, those people will be the ones who can optimize for the future.
And so Julia, so at Uplimit, you're really looking to see how can you help workers have the skills that they're going to need for the future. And so what types of changes are you seeing in learning systems and kind of the processes that are being put into place to make sure that like we can keep pace with that change?
Yeah, I think speed is now a requirement when it comes to learning officers rolling out learning programs within their companies. You know, when we first started and we were talking to companies, the cycle was like a 24-month cycle where they're spending 6 months or so figuring out what learning really needs to be done in the organization, and then another 18 months or longer in order to actually create the content. And 24 months ago, ChatGPT hadn't launched, and so you think about how much the world has changed over these last 18 months. And if you are still working on that AI course from 24 months ago, it is no longer relevant. And so you really need to think about new ways of creating content, creating learning experiences that are much more rapid. And I think fortunately, AI also really lends itself well to that, where you can begin to use AI for content production or regeneration or augmentation in ways that can dramatically accelerate the process.
And then, at Workera, you're really looking at, skills matching, right? And like how to kind of drive that connection. So how do you think about just like AI literacy and kind of the foundations that need to be put in place, and how is your company starting to address that?
The way I think about AI literacy is I think everybody will be an AI person. It's just regardless of if you're technical or not, just at different level of proficiencies. So to me, most of us are going to be users of AI. Some of us are going to be builders of AI. In a large enterprise, it's probably 5% of people who are going to be builders of AI. I tend to think about AI skills across multiple groups or levels. We have this transformational pyramid, if you will, starting at the top with the center of excellence. Those as data scientists or machine learning engineers or software engineers that build an internal AI platform or language models in the company. And then you go one level down and you change the type of skills that are needed. One level removed is what I refer to as AI plus X. It's more than literacy, but it's less than a builder. And those are people that are from every possible backgrounds. They're slightly technical. They may be a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, a material scientist, someone working on a turbine, or a financial expert. And AI can help them become more well-rounded and build something really meaningful. That group is really large and growing, I think, the fastest. Just to give you a data point, in the class I teach in the grad school at Stanford, the deep learning class on neural networks, 2/3 of the students are not majoring in computer science, despite the class being a computer science class, which is kind of new. And that phenomenon is going on across many enterprises. And then below that, you have the fluency or the literacy, which I also split into two different groups, because to me, fluency is what someone who's interacting with a technical counterpart needs. So imagine a marketer that's trying to sell a data product but doesn't know the vocabulary to use in order to sell that data product or to market it. Or think about an HR professional who's supporting a data science organization but doesn't understand what Python is, and they cannot really recruit or help make the most out of that talent and productivity. And so that to me is the fluency level, and the literacy level is frontline workers that may see a benefit from a productivity perspective, or who needs to be part of the change when you have a cultural change at the company.
So then do you see in companies then that, would it be almost 100% of their workforce then would need to be at that kind of literacy or foundational level? Is that kind of the future you're seeing, or kind of the near-term future probably?
Yeah, I think it's going to take time, but I agree with what Karen said. It's, used majors and minors. To me, I see durable and perishable skills. Gen AI is becoming a durable skill, a horizontal skill across every discipline. I mean, in most universities now, you have an AI course in every department. It's not a technical AI course, but there's AI in the journalism focus. There's AI in many areas, and I think that's going to just grow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's almost identical to data, right? I mean, seriously, 5-8 years ago, every discipline in a university structure, every degree program seemed to require you to take at least one course or two courses on data analysis, data this. And so I think it's almost more a theme, like there's just some of these skills, to your point about being very durable, they're necessary to be able to just efficiently hone in on what the right work to do is, then to get that work done most efficiently. It isn't so much that you're taking on another job. It's simply the way you're getting your job done is very different than the way we used to get it done, right, because of these skills. And so I think that AI is now going to be the latest in the grouping, a very important one.
And David, I know you've long been, focused on the topic of lifelong learning, and now at Degree, you're kind of looking at kind of this issue of, kind of the importance of human skills as it relates to technical skills, kind of the importance of skills-based hiring and infrastructure. But what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing? What are some of the areas that you're focused on?
Yeah, I mean, I think my brain tends to think of it in terms of systems. And I think one of the things that is going to continue to happen, if you think in a spectrum, we used to have full-time students and full-time workers, and we've slowly been moving in from both of those sides. As college got more expensive, students had to work. As learning accelerated, you had to kind of reskill more and more. And the pressure will continue until at some point it gets to like a Pareto optimal center point where we are always learning and always working. And I think the best data I have found, you talked about the perishable versus durable skills. So it's IBM data, but it was in like 1970, the half-life of a skill was 17 years. And then in like 2018, the half-life of a skill was 2.5 years. And so that slope looks like this. And so it's this asymptotic, and where is it gonna like level out? And I think that's kind of an interesting question to think about, which is, are we at the bottom? It's 2.5 years, and that was 2018. Like, I think obviously it's not the bottom. So where is it gonna bottom out? Well, the World Economic Forum says it takes 400 hours to learn a foundational skill. And if you're full-time, that's about, 3 months. If you're learning part-time, that's, I don't know, something closer to like 9 months. And right now, the premium on having AI as a skill is so high, both for individuals and organizations. It's a positive ROI for like just universally. If you go learn about AI, it's going to have a positive return. If your company invests in you learning AI, it's going to have a positive return. And so there's still, we should all be learning more still. We have not met diminishing returns yet. We should all be learning more. And so where is the asymptotic line going to fall out? And I think it's going to come down to pretty close to what it takes to develop the course and learn the course, to go back to your, it used to be 2 years, and that's no longer good enough. And so what that means for organizations is like it's going to turn into this, it used to be episodic, and it's going to have to start being continuous. And then the last thing I'll say about this is it sort of gets in a weird loop with AI, which is, when engineering a rocket, it's like if we need more fuel, then we make the canister bigger, which fits more fuel, which weighs more. So then we need more fuel. And because it's now bigger, the lining of the cylinder has to be thicker. So like finding that, AI, it's like, okay, now we're having to learn faster because AI showed up and it made the skills gap bigger. And so we need more AI to help us learn, but it just like cycles on itself, and it's gonna get to this place where we have to be truly continuously developing the learning, the content, and our people sort of all the time, and most organizations still are not there. It's still episodic today.
I think your comments make me think about kind of the traditional education providers, like community colleges, right? And kind of how long their cycles tend to be in terms of program development and approval and things. Like, I'm just curious, what do you all think of, what does the rapid pace of change and the pretty significant advancements and the solutions that are on the market, like all of yours and others, what does it mean for our traditional higher ed systems?
I'm happy to take a stab, or if you want to go.
Professor, do it.
No, but
you take it.
No, but I would differentiate first graduate school and undergraduate school, because I think they serve different purposes. But to me, as an employer, in my workforce, I want people who can do two things, who can do learning in the marathon of learning in life, and who can do the sprinting when I need them to sprint, because innovation is about sprinting. How did ChatGPT come to life? The transformer paper came out, and some people had the skill to take it and sprint and build ChatGPT a few years later with the transformer architecture. So sprinting is really important. And so I can bear the cost as an employer to give that sprinting capability to people. But if I'm bearing that cost, I would expect higher ed to provide the marathon and the durable skills. So I need people that have this passion for learning, that have this learning how to learn ability, learning agility, many ways to call it. Plus, I need them to have the durable skills, because if you didn't have math, algorithmic coding, linear algebra, English communication, writing and reading, you could not have read that transformer paper and build ChatGPT later on. And so to me, those are the two things I would expect higher ed to focus on.
So I think this is like a grow the pie moment. Like I've been working in sort of alternative credentialing type companies for a long time, and there's always this question of, will they disrupt higher ed? Or are you going to have like Coursera and then, only 10 universities that are going to exist in the world? And really, when you look at it, we just need a lot more people that have skills, regardless of what type of credentials are associated with those skills. So, 33% of the US adult population has an undergraduate degree. Globally, it's about 7%. And you think about where we're going in terms of our economy and the types of skills that individuals are going to need to thrive and survive, and it's much more advanced than where we currently are. And so I think people are going to find ways of getting those skills in formal institutions and informal institutions, and mostly I just think we need a lot more of it, and I think it needs to be continuous, as David said, and lifelong.
And to get to the point that David was getting in terms of the half-life, I also think it's become an ecosystem play, very much. It used to be very linear, right? So the higher ed institution would come up with a curriculum, somebody in the community would convince their son or daughter to participate in that curriculum, and somewhere along the line, the employer may or may not realize that those skills were important, and they'd hire the person. But all that would take years, right, to build the community college kind of ecosystem that then meant et cetera. And so I think now what we're seeing and working with Maria's organization, we have, as an example, in the state of Mississippi, a very ecosystem type play where we have the universities and the families and the government and the corporations all working together to build this AI capability in the community, right? Where then the corporations and others can take advantage of this, people can have jobs. And we have a really great example in El Paso, where we basically are helping El Paso reimagine manufacturing for the future. Like, what will the jobs in manufacturing be? How do we work with the higher ed institutions, with the local employers and the local manufacturing entities to figure out, like, what will these jobs be? What skills do people need? And then get ahead of it, right? Get the people the skills, make sure they're ready for these jobs, and help these businesses think about transforming because of AI. And so a lot of that, what you see now are the 5, 6, 7 stakeholders all working together from the beginning to try to figure this out and make it work for everybody from as early in the process as it possibly can.
So, I will give it back to you if you want to ask a different question, but I feel like to answer it, I've got to say what the future, I think, of skills inside the workforce looks like to be able to answer what higher ed needs to be doing. We willing to go on a two-step answer here? All right, so as briefly as possible, I just feel like so inside of the workforce, the best way I have of sharing this is a very small company, Marlin Steel in Florida, 39 employees, manufacturing. They printed off a skills matrix. It was a printed Excel spreadsheet they put on a corkboard on the manufacturing floor. All 39 employees on one axis, 135 skills on the other axis, and then every employee got rated 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 on the 135 skills. And every time that an employee would upskill, they would get a micro raise. And they went from making low intelligence wire baskets to upskilling the organization and it was baskets to Boeing. They now make intelligent parts for Boeing. The employees, many made more, started minimum wage, they're making 6 figures, they paid off loans, student loans, sent kids to colleges, bought house, transformed their lives, transformed the business, and it was done on an Excel spreadsheet. Like what AI is doing like this moment to the workforce is we couldn't do that at scale. You could do that with 39 employees, 39 times 135 micro skills, 5 levels, it's like 26,000 unique combinations. You can handle it with 39 employees. If you have 39,000 employees or 350,000 employees, you couldn't. We were incapable of organizing our companies by skills, but now we can. So the work that we are all collectively doing is to upskill, reflect that skill, inventory that skill, measure that skill, verify that skill, so that organizations can now organize rather than jobs by the next more discerning unit of what skills do you have. That's going to turn organizations into skill-based organizations. The economy is going to start organizing based on skill rather than job role. So that then ... what does higher ed need to do to be sort of a good supply, into that system? Well, it's got to modularize as well. A 4-year degree, I do like the durable framework. I mean, I've actually agreed with everything Kian says, and it's not how my brain works, so I deeply appreciate it. But I think we got to modularize that. I mean, right now, so a 4-year degree when the half-life of skills in 2018 was 2.5 years, I mean, going back to by the time the program's developed, we've got to modularize. We were talking backstage a little bit about right now, there's been this kind of wave of innovation and education benefits, but no one's graduating. Because, if my employer is giving me free university, and I used to stay on the job for 9 months and now I stay on the job for 18 months, that's still not enough time to get a 4-year degree. So we've got to see it modularize. We've got to see it sort of get to a more of the competency skill, framework.
Let's maybe switch a minute and put ourselves kind of in the seat of the worker who is going through kind of this time of transformation. And Karen, I love your ecosystem examples, right? Because to me, that is where the change is really going to happen, or in these communities. But Julia, how do you think about that in terms of helping the worker kind of through a time of change management, helping them see what their potential could be and help them really think about what their advancement path might be differently?
Yeah, so I can share some of the programs that we've actually rolled out with companies. So we have 2 Fortune 500 companies that we're working with that are rolling out what they're calling like an AI accelerator that's for actually their non-technical teams. And these are, one is a healthcare manufacturing company, another one is 150-year-old consumer goods companies. Like these are not the companies that you would necessarily anticipate to be on the forefront of AI education, and yet they are, because their employees are really scared. And they're thinking about their jobs and what's going to happen with AI and their jobs. And these companies want to be able to adopt AI for efficiency or for new product lines, but they need an employee base that's going to be able to explore that and sort of harness that. And so they've rolled out programs where employees can learn about what AI is, and then even more than like learn about what it is, they can actually build something with it. And so in the classes that they're doing, they learn how to prompt a chatbot that will help them with something to do in their job. And through that, they learn both, the potential of AI as well as its limitations. And I think that's incredibly empowering. And it helps them move from a sort of state of fear to one that can be more empowered and begin to start a conversation about it. And one thing that's interesting, the consumer goods company, as I was talking to the chief learning officer the other day, and as a consequence of that program, they actually started an AI council across the company to begin to think about what is the impact that AI is going to have across the organization, and all the different facets of that.
That's great. Kian, thoughts from you, like where you have seen kind of positive change management and kind of like transformation happening from the perspective of the worker?
Maybe I'll mention 2 things that I've seen or have not seen. The first one that I've seen is I just think that leaders should tell their workers that they don't know AI, because every business leader out there is pretending to know AI, which is fine. But the problem that arises is that the worker is going to mimic what the leader does. And then you end up with a workforce of, and that's not my term, it's one of my friends and collaborators, with dangerous amateurs. And that's a pretty big issue for an organization. I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos this year. One of the #1 topic was we cannot move from prototyping to production. Well, guess what? You cannot move because you don't have the skills. And nobody understands what are those skills that are needed for production. It's pretty easy to beat the prototyping skills. It's harder to beat the production level skills. And so I just encourage leaders to say, I think good leadership is you sit down, you say, I don't know AI, but we're in it together. And here are the skills I have today, and I've verified them, and I have a way to show you where I'm starting, and this is the target that I have at the end of the year. And then what you end up is with a workforce that will mimic what the leader is doing, and we'll be in it together. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I feel like AI, especially in the learning ecosystems, a lot of people tie it to productivity improvements. And it's true, it is productivity improvements. Gen AI will impact productivity, and there are signals showing that. But people fear that because productivity with a lag turns into a lower demand for a specific type of jobs. The power of AI will impact also other things than productivity. So a good transformation includes productivity enhancement. It also includes certain use cases, good use cases of AI. And oftentimes, leaders are focused on use cases that are high stake. There's something that is so important for the company, and you cannot get wrong. So the workers are scared. They cannot get it wrong. But that's not a good place to start with AI. You want to select a low stake project that has high visibility, where people can fail and people will learn to fail, and they will learn like that. One example that was fascinating to me, my advisor back in graduate school, Andrew Ng, was the leader of Google Brain at some point, and they were responsible for Google's transformation, widely Google being an internet company that today we accept as an AI company, right? But it was an internet company. Well, some of you may remember the cat recognition project, finding cats on YouTube. Remember that project? They found billions of cats in YouTube. Where the good thing is, if you don't find the cats, nobody's going to die, right? But if you find them, people are like, wow, what did that? And it turns out it's neural network that found the cats. And that low-stake project ended up pushing more and more people to adopt neural networks. And today, Google is one of the forefront leaders in neural networks, the authors of the Transformer paper and many others. But what I'm pointing at is this low-stake project had a huge impact on the change management. Yeah.
I like that. So kind of avoiding the dangerous amateurs and really kind of leaders bringing folks along with them on this journey. I think that's important. Kind of David or Karen, thoughts on that, like ideas or things that you have seen that are really kind of worker-centered transformation efforts?
I feel called out by dangerous amateur. So there's I am going to take all of Kian's best practices back. I will just say one thing to maybe reinforce it, which is Degreed is a platform that tracks everyone's education, and we use it internally. And so the articles, videos, books, podcasts, like all of the informal self-directed learning. And there is a hockey stick in our organization's learning about AI, and it was as simple as having a team meeting with a guest speaker, a year ago, and it was, so I don't know that it has to be overly complex or engineered to inspire people to kind of mobilize and move. But
so I think two things, quick things. One is all the work that we've done indicates that the #1 thing that you've got to help people get is intrinsically motivated to the skills that are increasing in need and those that are decreasing in need, right? People will be intrinsically motivated to pursue the skills when it's clear to them that the value of acquiring them is positive, because the ones they have are on the decline, right? So if you can show them the curve jump, basically, people are very motivated, right? People will go after these skills that that are necessary. And so one of the examples that I have recently is coming out of GitHub. And for those of you that may not be aware, so Microsoft has a company called GitHub. GitHub works with the developers, like engineers, coders, in millions of them around the world. And the early statistics are that your average developer that makes use of the GitHub resources has figured out a way to offload 46% of what used to keep them busy, right, with their AI partner now. And so they've been able to get a lot of these repetitive, more basic tasks done, which has made them 75% more engaged and satisfied because they're able to move on now to more variety in their work, more advanced skills and activities. And so I think this goes back to what you're mentioning, like the use case. Like show somebody why it's worth having those skills, like and how those skills that are on the incline can help you be more efficient, more effective, more valued. And people tend to gravitate and take advantage of them. And I want to just go on record as saying we're probably one of the only organizations that does have a leader that does know AI.
That's a good point. So if we imagine, we're successful and we've ended up in this kind of ideal place where organizations have employees that are fluent in AI, they understand how to utilize AI to augment their uniquely human skills in the workplace. We have leaders who are driving change management in a thoughtful way. We're using AI platforms to really help with skills matching and advancement within the workplace, right? So if all those things happen, what are our biggest barriers to getting there? So what are some of the challenges that have to be overcome to kind of getting to the future that I think that we have like pretty large agreement that we want to see? Is it policy? Is it access to training? Like what do you think the biggest, is it mindset?
I mean, I'll jump in here with two. I mean, I think the governor now is the rate of organizational change, no longer a technological limitation. I mean, I feel like now that we've sorted it all out with the technology, but enough, and now we're up against human sort of constraints. But I think regulatory. I mean, I think going back to, Karen, one of the comments you just made, I mean, we sort of have this invisible hand in the labor market, but it's really quite inefficient. I mean, the supply and demand, and I can make more money here, or if I have these skills, this adjacency, I mean, you only want to screw around with your career, it's high risk, and so you only switch jobs. I mean, even millennials, that's every few years, but I do think one of the things that will accelerate this the most and bring us fastest into the future is skills-based pay. Because if I can log in to Workday and see that, if I up-level in this skill, it unlocks $7 per hour, or it unlocks, $12,000 in salary per year, and this skill unlocks $3,000 in salary per skill, and this one unlocks, $900 in salary per skill. And there's resources to learn these things, but we're not paying you for those. You can do it if you want. Like, just think how much accelerant that will put into the equation. And it'll be expensive, perhaps, for organizations. It's an investment because you're essentially putting the carrot sort of up front, where right now it's you upskill, you show me you can do the job well for another year, and then I'll promote you and pay you more. We're kind of bringing the carrot up. But I think that's the thing we can do to get to that future as fast as possible. And to get there, we need regulatory kind of framework.
I like that. Skills-based pay. Love that. Other thoughts? Biggest barriers?
So I think companies are going to be incentivized to move in this direction. I think we are going to see huge labor market shifts in the next few years as a result of AI, and I think companies are both going to be thinking about how they redeploy individuals within the company, as well as how they handle individuals who they're potentially laying off. And I think it's that is scary, and it is. I don't know if you all saw the Klarna's announcement where they had rolled out an AI chatbot recently, and they said that it's doing the equivalent of 700 people's work, and it has higher rates of accuracy, faster response time, similar customer satisfaction as those employees. But then what happens to those employees? And I think companies have a responsibility and will feel a responsibility to think about ways to upskill them into meaningful new roles. And I think right now most of the conversation is around sort of AI upskilling, specifically around AI. And I think where the conversation is going to go in a year or two is not about AI, but around, you know, wherever the labor market is, where you need more people that have those skills. And so I think companies are actually going to be sort of forced to move in this direction as we see pretty rapid changes.
Yeah, I also hear more and more this worry that a lot of the traditional entry-level roles will significantly change or be possibly eliminated. And then what does that mean for advancement pathways if you're really changing what that maybe like first job out of college is? So I do think there's going to be a lot of things to figure out with that. But other thoughts, biggest challenges?
Yeah, I really like what David said around skills-based pay. I would say for me, the next frontier or challenge is going to be skills-based talent management, pay being a big part of it. But what we do is we verify skills. So we do the skills verification. I think if that happens really well, there is opportunities across all talent applications in an organization. So in upskilling, we waste a lot of time today. The major time wasted is because people don't learn what they actually need to learn, because we don't understand the gaps and we don't understand the goals. And once we understand those two things really, really well, we save a ton of time. That's one frontier. Project resourcing. Companies want to be mobile. Everybody wants a workforce that is in constant movement. And one of the things I try to do at Workera is to make sure people move as much as possible across functions. So it's common to see someone move from a function to another. And we force ourselves to a certain extent to do it. But I think at the scale of an enterprise, once you have the verification, movement is a great indicator that you're doing something right. You're moving people, you're opening pathways for them. And I just wish that we have more movement in organizations than ever. And then you continue to go project resourcing, staffing, internal mobility, payroll, all of that. I think if the skill infrastructure can support it, that is the next frontier, in my opinion. And AI will accelerate the access to that frontier.
That's right.
And I'll just go back to a point I made earlier, which is about the communities. Like, I do think a lot of this goes back to, even just talent pipelines and skills, right? A lot of larger companies, of course, are adapting their talent management practices to be skills-based and et cetera. But a lot of the smaller organizations or the smaller communities and the smaller businesses, they don't have that knowledge or that skill of how to do all these types of things. And the pipelines, in some cases, to Maria's point about, a frontline job in one industry may be a perfect secondary job in another industry, right? And so the more that people can be connected, right, these institutions, the governments, the corporations, and the community colleges, et cetera, the better off we would all be for solving this problem more holistically as we go forward outside of just large companies. And for those of you that are interested, just to make mention, we do have Microsoft has a really cool, it's called the TechSpark playbook. And so for any communities that are looking to figure out how to do better at these ecosystem type plays, not just AI specific, but in general, it is a free resource out there on the web and is quite helpful in helping communities get started.
We are just about out of time. So I want to thank our panelists for their wonderful insights and ideas for as we move this revolution forward. If you think about the discussions that were here at ASU+GSV last year and the discussions this year, I feel like the conversation is changing quickly. So I'm excited to see what the conversations will be next year and how these leaders are going to be helping to drive that and the future that we all hope to see. So thank you all very much for being part of this. And thank you to our panelists.